This is the 10-Minute Teacher Podcast with your host, Vicki Davis.
I'm so excited today. We're joined by Robert Benjamin, better known as Rob the AI Guy. Rob's a YouTuber who built a reputation for making complex AI and automation concepts simple, and I'm proof of that. Rob wouldn't have any way to guess this, but a good half of the things that I share on this show, I'm learning through the forums and the conversation in Rob's school. Now, it's spelled. He has over 700,000 subscribers on YouTube and growing, over 3 million views on his YouTube channel. And a massive audience of people, including me, are looking to him to help us stay ahead of everything that's going on, whether it's automations or all these different things. So, Rob, thanks for coming on the show, and just thanks for being helpful. You're somebody who's in my personal learning network, and I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. This is great.
Let's talk about current models, because one thing you've taught me is that not all models are the same. And when I travel and speak, I'm finding that a lot of people are just using ChatGPT like a search engine. They're kind of missing it, aren't they?
They are, yes. In terms of models, I'd really say that there's 3 big ones. You could add in a 4th if you want to. Besides what everybody says, I don't think that it's as good. Those big 3, I would say, would be ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini. You could throw Grok in there. Again, there's a lot of mixed feelings around Grok. I really don't think that it's that great. It's trained and it's created in a different way than all the other models, but the actual output that you get doesn't seem to be anywhere near as good as the other models. In terms of just a breakdown on all 3 of them, what Google's really good at is it's multimodal. That might sound really technical. All that means is that you could give it text, you could give it voice, you could give it video, you could give it audio. It can take any type of information, which is incredibly powerful because you could upload a video to it, or you could upload a podcast to it and actually get the transcript from it. ChatGPT's superpower is just that it's been around the longest. I really think it's probably the easiest for most people to use. Then Claude, the last one, I would say their superpower is writing. It tends to adapt to somebody's tone and style a lot better. In addition to that, they have something called MCP. Again, not to get super technical, it allows you to access other tools and other apps inside of Claude. So using all 3 of them, you kind of get a totally different experience, which is why I'd be curious to know your situation. But I personally use all 3 of them because having something for this and having somebody for this, and then you have somebody else for this, it's the same way with the models.
I use them all, honestly, side by side, and I teach my students to as well, because they're constantly changing. And one thing you just announced, I was over in the school, was that inside Claude, we're going to be able to use Excel and output to Excel. Google Sheets and all that stuff has been around, but I haven't been impressed. Have you been able to test the Excel features yet in Claude?
So I haven't been able to test it yet, but I will be putting something in there later today, and I'm sure I'll upload something on YouTube about it also. What I was saying before, MCP, Claude created that. The company behind Claude is actually who's responsible for creating that. It's basically how different AI tools talk to each other. So I would expect from Claude to be at the cutting edge of that.
It's just exciting because it's going to help us do so many different things. Now, you've also really got me using Perplexity a lot, which I know uses all the different models, and they have a new web browser called Comet. Okay, so what's the deal with this, and why would people want to use an AI-powered web browser?
Comet, if you've gotten the chance to play around with it, I really think that that is like the next frontier of where AI is going, because it's like a web browser that remembers everything and can do things. Anything a human can do on a web browser, Comet can do for you, and you could set up shortcuts and you could set up automations on it. You can talk to it, which is where I really think that things are going to go. With your phone, you could talk to your phone and say, could you remember this for me? Or could you do some small task for me? But let's say that you're on a walk and you don't have your phone, but you have your Apple Watch. You could say, hey, could you look this up and then schedule out this meeting and then send this email? And hey, did Vicky get back to me in my DMs on school? And be able to access pretty much anything that you can from a browser remotely like that, which is really cool.
The tough thing for a lot of us educators as we deal with AI is it's really easy to get into some kind of hype engine. People are selling me something like, I'm trying to figure out how to teach this to students. I want them to be you in 10 years, Rob. What do I need to be teaching my students so that they can be successful in a world of AI?
I spend a lot of time thinking about this. So I have a lot of younger siblings also. My parents want them, not that I'm against college, but my parents think like, oh, go to college and learn this. I'm like, You do realize your phone can do that, right? And like most of the world doesn't realize that. Yet, what is really going to be helpful to know in the future is how to think critically and how to solve problems. Because if it's just recalling something or if it's just finding something out, those are very easy tasks that AI is going to be able to do. But like being able to architect AI and think through from A to Z about something, I think is going to become really powerful, especially in a world where everybody is looking at TikToks that are 5 seconds long and they can't focus to read a book or to think through something like that. I really think that is like the most important thing. The other thing that I would say on the point that you made about how you could really get lost in like just today, 5 new updates have come out with just the big models and AI. I really think that like where the value is going to accrue with this is in like building a relationship with the tool that you use so that it has memory. It knows how you respond to things. And I think that is really where things are going to go. I always tie it back to a relationship, right? Especially in the age of the internet. You could probably find a new significant other every 30 minutes if you wanted to. But that's not where the
Weird.
value accrues in a relationship. You can't get that time back when you spent 5 years, 10 years. My parents have been together for like 40 years. When you've been together for that long,
Yeah.
there's no replacing that. I think that AI is going to be the same because the more times you interact with it, the more that it knows about you, the more access that it gets to your life, that just becomes really powerful to have that relationship. As odd as that sounds, us now having this relationship with technology.
It's a struggle because, I had a lot of projects in ChatGPT OpenAI that were really great. And then they unleashed GPT-5 for very good reasons because of the AI companion apps, which are really destroying this younger generation I work with. I get it because a lot of people are misusing GPT-4. But in some ways, that move kind of broke some of my projects. I think that's one thing is it just feels like sometimes it's inconsistent with these models. They do seem to be changing, and what they were yesterday is not what they were today. Sometimes I see people even argue and say, oh, AI does this, and then others like AI does that. And I want to say, hey, guys, AI does something different for all of us. It's a different interaction for each of us.
Absolutely. This is more of a hot take, but I think what really has happened, and I haven't said this on my YouTube channel because I think that like to some degree this will scare people. I think really what we've done is like given birth to a new life form. If you look at an individual, like I'm sure if my teachers saw me today, they'd be like, wow, that's Rob. Things have changed. I used to have a buzz cut. I had no facial hair. So the same thing is going to happen with AI. And I also think that it's one of those things where like, you may be mad at that change today, but later on, it's like, wow, I can't imagine life without that. But the moment that it happened, everybody was all upset about it. Yeah, that's really how I look at this. Again, I really think it's like a life form that's going to take a shape of its own and change and constantly change and morph into new things. The people that take advantage of it are going to be at a huge advantage because a lot of people still, even today, and I think this will continue to be true in the future, are just opting out of it or putting their head in the sand. I don't want to hear about it.
One thing I see with kids is you say life form, and I know exactly what you're meaning, but I see a lot of kids getting confused. Like kids, they won't make a decision without asking ChatGPT. And that's like not understanding how this model works. I really feel like that type of relationship is a misapplication of what it does because, from a business perspective, I'm using it for all these business use cases. But if I got a problem, I may talk to a pastor, I may talk to a friend, but no, ChatGPT's like to me, that's where I see confusion happening with the younger generation I work with. And you probably don't see that though with business people, do you? Do you see business people leaning on AI in that way?
You do, yeah. Not to get too technical, but I do think this will be good for the audience. So the way that all of these models work, and every single one of them works like this, is they have something called a context window, right? So a
Hmm.
context window is an amount of information that you could give to it, which would be like, back and forth exchanges. And then at some point, it doesn't remember the things that you told it because it exceeds the context window. So the way that I like to think about this is imagine if you and I were communicating with each other, but we only had a whiteboard, right? So once we filled up the whiteboard, if I wanted to say anything else to you and you wanted to say anything else to me, we would have to erase something. That's what these models are doing, which is why I'm sure you've seen it on the internet. A lot of people say, it started lying to me or it started not remembering things. And then you get frustrated with it and you're only continuing to go further down that path. The way that you could fix that is actually by starting a new chat and refreshing it. And then you'll have a new context window. I mean, I see this across everything where you can't believe everything that you read on the internet. I think it's the same thing. You can't believe everything ChatGPT tells you. How do younger people really learn to harness this? I think it really is critical thinking and being able to say, you know what? I don't think that's right. And then having a discourse with it. Branching it's a new feature that ChatGPT just came out with. So when you're inside of a chat, if you at one point you're like, oh, it brought up a good point, or I want to bookmark that for later, you can branch it and it will then open up a new chat where you can continue that conversation. But again, the nice part about that is it then doesn't bring in the context from that other chat. So you kind of have imagine if you were dealing with somebody that typically is, really smart, but you woke them up at 2:00 in the morning. They didn't get enough sleep. They didn't get anything. Doing that is kind of like getting a fresh version of ChatGPT when it's at its best.
I gave a keynote last week and I asked how many people had heard, I named models besides ChatGPT. It was like out of a room of 250, one person had heard of one of the other models.
I do think that people are going to have to be proactive to seek these things out, right? The reason that I think that's before getting really involved with AI, I run a pretty big social media consulting agency. The way that they all work now is it's interest-based, right? When I talk about ChatGPT, it gets way more views. The reason it gets way more views is because the algorithm is pushing that because it knows that people are interested in that.
One thing I've always read is that some of the greatest innovations happen when we get outside of our silo of our profession to learn from others. And I think it's really important to connect with people using AI in all different areas because this is where our students are heading. So, Rob, I do hope my students will get to be you. They will actually probably be assigned this interview to listen to. And thanks for taking your time today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to the 10-Minute Teacher Podcast. Watch the video version of this podcast and catch my new radio and TV show, Cool Cat Teacher Talk, on YouTube and a radio or TV station near you. Join my Cool Cat Teacher Classroom Matters newsletter at coolcatteacher.com/newsletter. Leave a review if you found this helpful. See you later, educator.